When fans think about the biggest moments in Shield Hero, a few scenes usually come to mind. Naofumi's betrayal. His rise as the Shield Hero. The waves of catastrophe. The major battles that shaped the story. But there's one detail many fans still haven't realized. The most important events of the series may not have happened yet. And that sounds surprising. After all, we've already seen wars. We've already seen kingdoms fall. We've already seen heroes battle incredibly powerful enemies. But the next major arc promises to change something much bigger. The entire direction of the story. And that's exactly why so many light novel readers consider it the most important arc in Shield Hero. Because it doesn't just change the characters. It changes everything we thought we knew about the world. At the beginning of the story, everything seemed relatively simple. 4 cardinal heroes. The waves threatening the world's survival. And a group of characters trying to overcome that crisis. But as the story progressed, it became clear that the situation was far more complicated. Because the waves were never just a natural disaster. They were never simply events of destruction. In reality, they were only one piece of something much larger. Something that had been happening behind the scenes since the very beginning. And the further the story advances, the more that truth begins to emerge. That's exactly why this upcoming arc is so important. Because for the first time, the characters begin to see the complete picture. And once that happens, everything changes. The enemies change. The priorities change. The goals change. Even the way we view the heroes begins to change. Because for a long time, Naofumi fought to protect his world. But what happens when the threat is no longer limited to a single world? That's the question that starts redefining the entire series. And the answer is far more terrifying than it seems. Because the more we learn about the origins of these conflicts, the more we realize that the heroes were only fighting part of the problem. The real threat was always much bigger. And that pushes Naofumi into a completely different level of responsibility. But perhaps the most interesting part is something else. Naofumi's own evolution. Because when he first arrived in this world, he was simply trying to survive. Then he became a hero. Then a leader. Then someone capable of influencing entire nations. But now the scale of the story continues to grow. And with it, Naofumi's importance grows as well. Because the challenges ahead demand something very different from anything we've seen before. It's no longer enough to be strong. It's no longer enough to win battles. It's no longer enough to protect your allies. For the first time, the fate of multiple worlds begins to enter the equation. And that completely changes the weight of every decision. But there's another reason why many readers consider this the most important arc in the entire series. The revelations. Because some of the biggest answers in Shield Hero begin to emerge during this period. Mysteries that have been building for countless volumes. Questions fans have carried for years. Secrets involving the heroes, the worlds, and the true forces driving the entire story. Everything slowly begins to take shape. And that completely changes the experience of following Shield Hero. Because suddenly we realize that many events from the past carried much greater meaning than we originally thought. But there's something even more impressive. The scale of the conflict. Because for a long time, fans were used to seeing wars between armies, battles between heroes, or confrontations against powerful monsters. Now the situation is different. The enemies become greater. The consequences become greater. And the risks become greater. Much greater. And that creates a constant feeling that the story is finally moving toward something that has been built up since the very beginning. As if all the pieces are finally coming together. And perhaps that's exactly why this arc generates so much excitement. Because it doesn't feel like just another step in the journey. It feels like a turning point. The moment when the story stops growing only in scale. And starts growing in significance. That's why when many readers call this the most important Shield Hero arc, they're not just talking about action. They're not just talking about epic battles. They're talking about a moment that redefines everything. The characters. The world, the enemies, and Naofumi's role within the story itself. And perhaps that's the greatest proof of its importance. Because when this arc begins, Shield Hero stops being simply the story of a hero trying to save his world, and becomes something much bigger. Something that affects the entire structure of the series universe. And what do you think? Do you believe the best moments of Shield Hero are still ahead? Or do you think the story has already reached its peak? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.